In response to my upcoming graduation, I have kind of thrown myself into this investigation about my cultural ancestry. And I have a lot of questions regarding my upcoming career in education and what I've learned. And since I'm going to be a college graduate, I've thought about what is it going to mean to have my degree, and what is it going to mean to start a career in a profession, and what does it mean to be successful. And being an English major, I've read a lot of American literature, and I realized a constant theme in most American novels that I've read is the idea of the American dream, and The Great Gatsby, for example, and how it may just be a fallacy, or it may be to some people a very real concept. And thinking, being Mexican American, being Chicana, I've yet to read a book about the Mexican American dream, or what it means to believe in the American dream and be of Mexican ancestry. So this documentary is my attempt to collectively answer that question through other people's responses, and kind of get a feel for what the American dream is, if it does exist.
Zacatecas, Mexico.
My name is Monique Roses, and I am from Bergen, California.
My name is Jacinta Garcia, and I am originally from San Jose, California, east side San Jose, but I live in Ventura.
I'm Mallory Cronin, and I'm from Santa Maria, California.
I am from the LA area. Right now I live in Little Rock, California, and I was born April 16, 1990.
Los Angeles, Montebello. That's where I was technically born. Moved to Utah, then to La Puente, came back, and now I live in Long Beach. And background, academic background, isn't it, right? Okay. Went to Fullerton College, community college, then to Long Beach, where I got my bachelor's in Chicano Latino Studies and Psychology. And then I went to Harvard, where I got Harvard Graduate School of Education, where I got a master's in education, human development, and psychology.
My name is Esther Clark, and I live in Santa Barbara, California.
This is where you're from?
Yeah. I was born on December 18th, 1969.
My name is Adrienne Perez, and I was born in Bellflower, California in 1989.
My name is Georgina Guzman. I am an assistant professor of English here at Cal State Channel Islands. I'm from, well, geographically speaking, I'm from the San Fernando Valley, but my parents are from Mexico, so my parents are immigrants from a town named Ayutla, Jalisco, Mexico. And I was born here, so I guess I'm second generation, but that's where I'm from.
Thank you.
My name is Bernardo. I was born in Long Beach and grew up in Costa Mesa, California.
And tell me more, tell me about your family history.
Well, my family, 6 of us, come from Zacatecas, and all of us except my little sister are immigrants who came here in the 1970s. And many of us came here in different stages. So my older siblings came here earlier. Before me, I was left behind with my grandparents for 2 years because I was too young. to cross the border illegally. At the same time, in 1986, there was a law that was passed, the Immigration Reform and Control Act, and that law basically gave amnesty to families, undocumented people who were here before 1981. And since we were here since 1970s, we were eligible. So I went through that process of legalization, and thank God, because I don't know if I would be here as a professor at CI if I.
My family history. For starters, I am 4th generation Mexican, Puerto Rican American.
My great grandparents came from Ireland, and I think they moved to the East Coast. And then my great grandpa got a job at the Panama Canal, and so they were in Panama, and my dad was born there. My mom lived in Santa Maria the whole time. They moved to Santa Maria, my dad's family, and my parents met. And here I am today.
My dad came to the United States from Guatemala when he was around 16, and my mom came from El Salvador when she was around 13.
My mom is from Costa Rica, and my dad is from here.
My father is from Compton, and my mother is from East LA. My mother is the child of 2 immigrant parents who made it here to this country. Her mother came here legally, and her father illegally, I believe. But both gained citizenship.
So my father came here in the 1970s, and he worked at a plastics factory, and I had an aunt living here, and that's how he ended up moved here to the U.S. with her. And then my father went back to Mexico and married my mom, and she came over here in 1979, and I was born, soon after.
Both of my parents are from Zacatecas, Mexico. Both my parents were born, actually grew up together, and they both moved over here when they were, give or take, my dad when he was 16, and my mom when she was 17.
How do you identify yourself?
I identify as Chicano. And it's a word that not everybody completely understands. That I went through a process where I learned a lot about my history, my culture, and I took Chicano studies classes. And I always felt like when I would go back to Mexico, they would not fully accept me because I'm too Americanized. However, in the U.S., I never felt like I was included in that category of American.
I'm half black, half Puerto Rican. I have been to Puerto Rico many of times, and I can strongly identify with that language, that island, that culture, the food. On the other hand, I know that I'm African American, but I've never been there. I've never been to southern parts of the United States that are really rooted in that culture. So I feel like I'm lacking in that area.
I identify myself as a Chicana. Again, it depends on my audience. Like when you asked before and I said I'm like Mexican, American, Chicana.
I would say Irish.
I identify myself as an American citizen, knowing that I have a bilingual background, being an American citizen and having a Central American background.
How do you identify yourself?
I always check other because I see myself as half and half.
How do you identify yourself?
It's queer Chicano.
I identify as Chicana. In my recent education at Channel Islands, I have learned a lot about my history and my culture, and it's important to me that I have an identity that I feel does not leave out any part of me, and I think Chicana does that.
I identify myself as Chicana.
Chris, how do you identify yourself?
As Chicano Latino.
So explain to me your definition of the American dream.
The definition of the American dream for me is equal opportunity for all. I think whether you are undocumented, whether you are, you know, gay or lesbian or disabled or refugee, transgender, you know, if you have come from a position of being born and made to feel like you're different or lesser than or marginalized or excluded, I think that those are the people that we need to give the same opportunity than anybody else who was born with privilege. And so to me, the American dream is about equalizing equal opportunity, right? Allowing everybody to have the same, you know, opportunity to reach their full potential and to succeed.
That's hard. Is there a definition of the American dream? I don't think so. I think I don't even know it. We have been taught that the American dream is to be successful, to have a lot of money, and to be powerful. But to me, if you're happy and you're happy with what you're doing, and you're a productive member and a member of society, that's the American dream.
I think we have a very romanticized version of that,
Which
is I could imagine, you know, you hear, I want a house, white picket fence, 2 point whatever kids, getting married, very heteronormative, very binary, black and white. You're a guy, you marry a mujer, and you have a kid, and you buy that house, and that's it.
Being able to comfortably raise a family in America, having a house, kids, a job, like a steady job, retiring.
American dream. I think the American dream for me would be to have a stable home, to have a stable job, to provide for myself or for the future family that I may have. Also, reaching any education level that my parents didn't reach.
So you have the American dream, that's usually the public discourse, right? The narrative, the ethos of what America's supposed to be, which is opportunity based on merit. So if you work hard, then you'll succeed, right? And I think there's some truth to that for certain people, but there's also, I think you'll find microcosms or differences in what the American dream is for different people. So if you're talking about people of color, the American dream has always kind of been defined by experiences, whether it be W. Du Bois, when he talked about, right, having access to, let's say, public education and having access to higher ed, going to Harvard, being from Harvard but not of Harvard, which is telling. But then there's also the Latino experience, right, which is more on immigration, so they might have their own perspective of what it means to be, or what it means to have the American dream or access to the American dream based on kind of relative deprivation between what it was in Mexico, Guadalajara, Mexico, or, you know, say Guatemala or El Salvador, wherever they're from, Cuba, and otherwise their definition might be a little different.
The American dream is being able to fulfill your own dream, whatever it may be.
What is yours?
You know, so my dream, I guess right now, because it changes all the time. You know, I'm a lot older than you, so it changes a lot, all the time. And I feel like for me right now, it's finishing my education. I have a goal in mind, and finishing my education, getting stable, putting myself in a stable position again would be nice, and just being happy, continuing to be happy.
The American dream is an idea that in order to be successful, you have to have. You have to have a degree. You have to have a house. You have to have a family. And I don't think that this is necessarily something that everybody wants or that everybody should try to achieve.
Well, the American dream to me, first of all, I understand what is meant by it, right? This kind of desire to attain material wealth and a home, and participate in this larger kind of consumerist society. So I think it's tied with integrally with consumerism. But I think that kind of idea, it has been kind of exported to the rest of the world. So it's not even an American dream anymore. It's just a desire to consume and purchase things. Like, you know, you go to Mexico and it's the same thing.
I know the American dream, the way that it's the narrative of it, I guess, is that it's this kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps, individuality. If you work hard enough, you can accomplish anything. So I know that's the dominant definition of it.
And you don't believe in that?
And I just think that that's not. I think it's true for people who have privilege in our society, and it's true for them. But for a lot of other people, for a lot of different reasons, it's not. It doesn't take into account institutional barriers that people face, whether it's because of gender, because of race, immigration status, a lot of different reasons.
How was the American dream invented?
Well, from what I read, it kind of came over on the Mayflower, and then the message of it was sent back to Europe as a means to try to get people to move over. And then as it was progressing, it became more and more a part of the American imagination. Then in the early 20th century, people kind of started to articulate that, and I believe in the 1920s it really began to get leverage. It was published in a couple of newspaper articles, and people started talking more and more about it. And then finally it ended up becoming such a part of the mystique of being an American that politicians started to call upon it. And we've seen over the past 90 years that it continually is evolving to just be something that people want to achieve but can't quite get there yet. So it's a driving force in that regard.
And when you say that it's something that people want to achieve, what do you mean by it? Like, how would you define it?
Well, it depends however they define it, and that's the most interesting part to me about it, is that I thought that if you asked a bunch of people what the American dream was, they would typically have different definitions. In my class, I found that most of the people in my class had similar definitions: owning a house, having a family, being successful. But successful is another example of a word that you could just define in multiple ways, and people assume you have the same definition of it, but as they do, but you don't necessarily do so. So I think that's the it I'm referring to, the dream itself, which is always changing. So somebody in the class called it like the shape-shifting sort of idea, and I think that's a pretty accurate description of the way it's worked over the past 90 years.
Is the American dream still alive today?
Yeah, I mean, I think the dream is alive. I think there's parts of the original American dream that was articulated in the 1920s that exist today, but I think a lot of it has evolved. I think it is held up by people speaking generally about it.
Do you think the American dream is at all detrimental to our society?
Yeah, I think overall it is a detrimental thing, just because it gives people a false notion of what they can achieve and what they can't, and I think just the reality of it is not everybody has the same opportunities. It would be beautiful if it was possible for everybody to achieve it, but I don't think that is the case.
Why do you think so many people immigrate to this country?
Because they want something better, and they have this idea that there's something bigger and better in the United States for them.
It's one of the higher power countries, and it's kind of got like a stable foundation compared to other countries, which are second or third world. And I think people just find America to have a lot of opportunities.
First of all, the U.S. has intervened in a lot of countries and, made the conditions there unlivable. So, I mean, and it's documented, right? A lot of the places where the U.S. intervened with their military and their funding of the militarism, these countries, the people then immigrate to the U.S. So we have kind of, peoples that have been displaced, and the conditions in their countries are unlivable, either through war or economic, distress, and that's why they come to the U.S. Not because they want to leave, but because they have to.
I feel that people immigrate to this country because they want a bigger dream for themselves, knowing that even though you're poor here in the United States, you have so much more. Here, when you're poor, sometimes you're in a one-bedroom apartment, no TV, or not enough food. But when you're in the countries over there, you don't have no electricity, no washer and dryer. You have a lot more things here in the United States, and you can earn more when you're working here than in countries like in Latin and Central America.
That's a good question. For different reasons. One might be the idea of the American dream, but I don't think it's necessarily the defining factor. I think one of the biggest variables or reasons why people actually come to the U.S. is because there is a sense of opportunity here, right, versus their country. So relatively compared to here, there's more opportunity there. So what it means to be poor here is very different. What it means to be poor in East LA, for example, is very different what it means to be poor in Central Mexico.
I think that they feel that there are opportunities that would allow them to have more.
People don't come here voluntarily. They come because they're struggling, they need to eat. And when you're in a country that has been devastated, particularly, like give an example, like the borderlands of Mexico after NAFTA went into effect, a lot of these folks lost their land, lost their livelihood. So what do? Do you sit there and just starve while your family's there? Do you watch that happen? Or do you use your agency and do something?
I think because of the idea of the American dream, the idea of opportunity.
I would say that primarily for economic reasons. I think that's the biggest. But then you also have people for political reasons, for reasons of natural disasters, reasons of civil wars. And so you have a lot of different causes of immigration, but for the most part, I would say that economic betterment for your family is one of the main reasons. You have to look and see how anybody would risk their lives to cross a border or to board a ship or spend hours in like a trunk of a car or ship just trying to risk their lives to help their family, right? And they would do anything to help their family. So it's really about, when it comes to risking whatever you have to feed your family. And so that's really, to me, one of the main reasons why people would want to come to the U.S., to have a little bit of that American dream.
Okay. So, por favor, repeat, su nombre es... I'm sorry, my Spanish is not that good. So, I'll film myself. Okay, so... ¿Cómo se llama?
Berta.
Berta? Where are you from in Mexico?
México.
In Mexico o Oaxaca?
Oaxaca.
Oaxaca. Excuse me. ¿Por qué viven aquí?
Porque mi esposo está aquí.
Porque tu esposo está aquí. Y su esposo es where does he work? Trabaja.
Él trabaja en la fábrica.
¿En fábrica?
Está aquí por mucho tiempo.
Mucho tiempo. ¿Cuántos años?
16.
16. Mucho tiempo. Por usted, ¿qué es tu idea de success?
Pues la idea es trabajar para poder ir a México y poner una casita allá y estar con la familia. Ahorita estamos aquí lejos de la familia, pero estamos trabajando para llevar un poco de lo que ganamos y construir